It is day 71 of our DIY Sprinter van build, and yesterday I left off with starting on the electrical system. Started installing some of the cables to the different components of the van, and I mounted all of the devices along the electrical area, and now I just gotta make more cables, crimp more lugs to them, and start making more connections around all these components. Today is day 71 of our DIY Sprinter van build. Let's get started. I'm going to start with cutting and crimping a bunch of wires to connect the batteries to the isolator switch here and onto the Lynx shunts. I sort of organize this area a little bit so that I have a clean workspace for cutting wires. I'm also going to be cutting a bunch of wires, the 6-gauge wires, to connect the solar charger over to the Lynx, and also the DC to DC charger, DC to DC converter over to the Lynx as well. So let's start by cutting some cables. The wires to connect the batteries, positive to positive, negative to negative. The positive and negative wires need to be exactly the same length so that the currents can travel the same amount of distance for the positive and negative side. So I'm going to be measuring them to make sure that these lengths that go from here to here to here, and from the black here to here to here, are exactly the same size. Okay, let's start with the positive wires first. So these are going to go from here to here, and there's going to be a lug. Here are my 3 red wires. So I'm going to connect it like this. Hopefully they're not too short. Might be a little bit short. The lugs go in. Let's see. I think they're a little bit too short. Alright, let me just make them a little bit longer. I don't think this is going to reach after the lug goes in. And for the black wire, because there is a terminal here that extends this positive end by like this much, I'm gonna make the cable for the black one the same extra to account for this difference here. So I'll just make it just a little tad longer. Okay, I got my cables cut. Let's add some lugs and heat strings to them. First one's done. Now that we got all 6 cables with the lugs on, let's add some heat strings to them. Next, I'm going to run a cable for the positive and negative into the Lynx shunt. For the positive side, it's going to go from here to the isolator, and from the isolator to the Lynx shunt, and then the negative side will be from here to the Lynx shunt. And those two links also need to be the same. So I got to calculate which one is going to be the longer run. I think the black one, negative, is going to be longer. It'll run all the way around. And then I'll just make these cables here the same length as well. Let's start with the black one. This is going to be the last 2-aught wire run that I need to make. Everything else is going to be smaller cables. So we will do from here, negative, which is going to be this port right here. We want to try to keep this run as short as possible. Is this the best way to do it, or is this negative the best way and this positive the longer, the shortest way, just in total length? This might be better actually. So I might be able to run a red wire from here, the plug here, and then from here into the positive, and then from here I will run into the negative. Okay, I think that's a shorter run. All right, let's do that instead. And I gotta make sure that the cables are not gonna interfere with the plugs here for the Servo GX up top. So I'll try to go over it on the top here. Okay. And you can change the orientation of the switch, whether I want it to be left and right or top and bottom. I think I'll go top and bottom. Might be an easier run. Now that I got these two cables cut and crimped, I'm gonna measure the black cable plus the isolator switch, which is gonna give it an extra maybe 1.5 inches to it. I'm going to connect the isolator to the Lynx shunt using this shorter cable on the red side. So I got to drill a little bit bigger of a hole for the one on the isolator side. This is not the right size. I think this is a M10 probably. So before I can install this, I need to drill a hole. I guess I'll do it another day then. Next, let's cut and crimp some 6-gauge wires. These are going to be for the MPPT solar charger to the Lynx distributor. I'm going to make a ground cable first for this one, because it's on the side of the charger here. On this side. So I'll run this first, and then that's why I didn't mount these two solar chargers or DC to DC chargers, because once I mount it, this is going to be hard to access. So let's do this first. Let's run this. Grounding wire is going to run into the inverter's ground. So I'm just going to measure the length, and I'll make the cut and crimp and heat shrink. You know, this thing is so annoying. The blooper reels? That'll be funny. People don't see that. People only see me do it right the first time. Every time.
You should make a video of all your blooper reels.
Uh-huh. I put the mistakes in. Look, I made 4 mistakes. Yeah, a little too short. Okay, let's run this ground wire that I just made. that's gonna get fed into the inverter here. I'm going to cut a bunch more of the 6-gauge wire to connect the solar charger and the DC to DC converter over to the Lynx distributor. I got to run another cable, or 2 cables, for the DC to DC charger that's going to go all the way to the front of the van to the van's starter battery. That's what it's going to get connected to. So I'm going to make a hole here and reach around back and we'll make that connection. Let's add a hole here. This would have been a lot easier if it was ran prior to everything being up here, but we didn't know which system we were using as far as DC to DC charger until recently. So here we are. We're running some more wires through our van, and here we have it. The 2 10-gauge wire is going to get connected to the starter battery. Let's mount these 2 DC to DC chargers on the wall here. I'm going to strip and crimp on the ferrules and get it connected to the chargers. I'm not going to connect any of the red wires from these devices over to the Lynx distributor because I'm still waiting for a breaker to come. A problem with a 48 volt system like this is that the fuses that's for the Lynx distributor, I think the smallest is like 50 amps. And because the ampage for 48 volts, it's a lot less, really doesn't protect the devices. It protects the wire because I have wires that are pretty thick, but if an event of like a higher voltage or higher ampage shock to these systems, then the devices will probably break if I don't have the right fuses. I need a 15 amp fuse for the DC to DC charger and a 20 amp fuse for the DC to DC converter. And these 2 or these 3 devices, I'm actually going to be using a breaker instead, and they do make higher voltage breakers for DC units that are 10 to 15 amps. Yeah, that was a little bit of a problem I ran into, just finding fuses. If this was a 24 or 12 volt system, the mega fuses that's going to go directly on the distributors, Lynx distributors, are enough to protect the system, but yeah, they're too big. Okay, I'm going to run another 10 gauge wire from the DC to DC converter over into the 12-volt side, all the way up by the upper cabinets where all my 12-volt wires are ran into and the 12-volt fuse boxes are. So let's run that. I'll finish wiring this up once the breakers arrive. Let's work on something else. I'm gonna work on wiring the AC distribution box. I got a few of the cables here. These are for wires for outlets around the van. One is going to be a dedicated one just for the water heater in case we want to turn it on using power. One is going to be the kitchen line, dishwasher outlets on the wall, and then one is going to be the microwave line, and then another outlet on the front and near my closet. So those are the 3 lines that we need to run. We'll connect them to breakers. I will connect a 6-gauge wire from the inverter here to the main breaker, and I think that's it for the distribution box, but let's get that connected. This is the cable that I'm connecting to the inverter over to the distribution box. 6-gauge 6-3 wire with mosquitoes are coming out. I'm trying to see which slot the thick wire is going to go into. I think it could be one of the side here, or I don't know. Could be the top, but it's pretty tight. Maybe a pretty tight spot, but let me play around with it for a bit. Here are the breakers. This is the 20 amp one. We got 3 of these guys. And this one is the main circuit breaker, 50 amp. I want to try to see if I can route this really thick cable, the 6-gauge wire, on the bottom side of it and then back up into the AC distribution panel. This is where it's going to be, but it might be a little bit too short. This is a 5 feet cable, but let me see how far I can get with this. Worst case is I'll just route it from the top. Let me see how much more cable I have once this goes in. I don't think too much, but let's see. Let me add a ferrule to each one of these before I make the connection. On the AC outside. So black is the line. Okay. Now that wire is hooked up. Let's see how much I can get through to here. I'm going to strip away some of this sheathing here to make that connection into the distribution box there. By the way, I never used this style of AC distribution box before, and I realized that this is a little bit more complicated than a regular, I guess, household or RV type distribution box, because I need to run some wires between the breakers in order for them to kind of connect that circuit on the positive side. I thought that that rail itself was going to connect it, but I have to make individual wires to connect it to from breaker to breaker. So how this distribution box is going to work is, from the bottom side, I'm going to run the cable that I just ran from the inverter into the main breaker here. The neutral line and the ground line, they're actually going to be switched to the bottom here because the wire just fits perfectly on the bottom side. And I'll be able to connect the positive from the main one to the second one to the third one and the fourth one. I only have 4 circuits here, so it's not a lot of wires to run. Those will get connected, and then on the top will be the actual load to the line, and the 2 bus bar, which will be on the bottom, will connect the grounds together and the neutrals together. And there's a mosquito. So let me punch a hole down here, move the bus bars down, and we can get them connected. I think the lid should be able to open just fine. Let me make some connections first before I sort of secure this down. The hardest thing about this is getting the wires to cooperate. These are pretty thick wires, so I'm trying to see if I can get them to fit where they're supposed to go. Such a tight spot to work in. Oh, and the wires being so thick, it doesn't help at all. Okay. And then now we gotta get the ground and the neutral rails in place, which is pretty tough with these wires. But I think I'll do it. I'll be able to do it. Let's see. All right, let me just redo this wire. Cut the 2 neutral and the ground a little bit shorter. And then I think we should be able to get them linked up. But let me just play around with it. I think this is going to be it for me for tonight. It's getting dark and it's almost time for dinner. So let me figure this out, and it's dinner time. Okay, let's see what's for dinner tonight. We got beef and broccoli. Ooh, smelt with a lot of eggs there. And wow, look at the abalone and some veggies there. Very nice. Okay, Sekwana. Thank you. Sekwan. Is it a construction site, Spence? You take it down a forest? Whoa, look at that big one. That's a big broccoli, huh? Is it good? Yeah? You leaving? Alright. Bye. We just got done with dinner, and that is it for today's video. Looks like the electricals in the van is a lot of work. More than I expected. A lot of wiring, as I mentioned. There's going to be more, maybe 1 or 2 more days. Hopefully I can get done in 2 days. And everything will be good for electrical. So if you guys want to keep following our DIY Sprinter van build, hit that subscribe button so you get notified when the new videos come out. And if you enjoy watching this video, smash that like button so they can spread to more people. We really appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.